Africa, a land known to Europe for centuries. Through trade, travels, and yes, slavery. But something changed in the 1800s. Suddenly, Africa wasn't just a place to trade with. It became something to own. For three big reasons: raw materials, markets, national pride. The European bigwigs were willing to do just anything. During the Second Industrial Revolution, the whole of Europe was like a crowded room filled with armed men, each watching the others with suspicion, none daring to lower their weapons first. Factories in Britain, France and Germany needed raw materials. In Africa had a low feeding touch. A great price to smile to grab. Rubber, gold, cotton, copper and palm oil were more like it, amongst others. Among Europe made people to buy their produce. They saw Africa as that place. A large market to sell their clothes, guns, alcohol and more. European countries were competing to look powerful. The more lands you control overseas, the more greater empire loomed. Although the spread of Christianity enjoyed a subtle priority, yet the so-called civilization and racism disguised as duties first way. And underneath all of it was the ugly-haired weed in competition. The white man said he brought civilization and all that greatness to Africa. But the question of how true that is remains for you to answer. The Scramble for Africa was an European affair, driven by kings, prime ministers, businessmen and explorers. Britain was already ruling India, but they wanted control of Africa, from Egypt in the north all the way to the Capes of South Africa. France, and after losing their war to Germany, wanted to rebuild their brewery with and in Africa. And Germany, a newborn son in the League of World Empires, was hungry for status. And this went on, even with the small players in the game, like Belgium, Portugal, Italy and Spain. None of them asked the people of Africa what they wanted. Not once. All they were armed with conquest and subjugation. The way Scramble began in the late 1870s, but exploded in the year 1884. By that time, European leaders met in Berlin, Germany, for what's now known as the Berlin Conference. 14 countries sat at the table, no African invited, not one. They drew maps, made rules, and agreed not to fight each other directly, but to divide Africa amongst themselves like a piece of cake. By the year 1914, just 30 years after, nearly every inch of Africa had been taken, only Liberia and Ethiopia remaining independent. Of course, this country didn't always get along. Britain and France clashed in Sudan in 1898, and it almost turned into a war. Germany and Britain fought over land in East and West Africa. Italy tried to take Ethiopia, but lost badly in 1896 at the Battle of Adwa. The invading Italian and Eritrean forces, led by Orese Baratieri, was decisively defeated by the Ethiopian army under Meloni II. While Portugal and Britain were arguing over borders in Southern Africa. This wasn't about helping Africans. It was about outdoing each other, grabbing more territory and bragging rights. To them, Africa was just a land on a map, a big chunk of cake to be sliced through. And so they were all racing to grab, not asking to share. Each country got lands, resources and labor. Britain gained control of key trade routes like the Suez Canal, from the Gulf of Suez in the Red Sea through to the Mediterranean Sea, taking gold and diamonds from South Africa, palm oil from Nigeria, and cotton from Egypt. France built a massive empire in West and Central Africa where they took nodes, timber and manpower. Belgium made the most money in the most brutal way. King Leopold II turned Congo into his private cash machine. Millions died there, producing rubber and ivory. During his Scramble for Africa, King Leopold II of Belgium secured a personal empire, not for Belgium but for himself. 1885, at the Berlin Conference, he talked European powers into giving him control by the Congo Basin, under the pretense of humanitarianism and anti-slavery war. While in reality, he founded the Congo Free State, a private enterprise disguised as a noble cause. But in actuality, there was nothing free about the Congo Free State. Just like there is nothing free in Freetown. Leopold's regime turned the region into a hellish labor camp. His primary obsession, rubber. As global demand for rubber soared, the Congolese were brutally forced to harvest it. Villages were given impossible quotas. If they failed, they were met with whips, mutilation, or outright death. The most common was severed hands. But upon discovery of this atrocious act, Leopold was forced to relinquish the Congo to the Belgian authorities. This was in 1908. Leopold never saw a courtroom. He died wealthy and unrepentant. He built hotel and entire nation and built Belgian monuments with Congolese blood. Well, enough of Leopold and his ills for now. Germany built colonies in Tanzania, Namibia, Togo and Cameroon, mostly for farming and cattle. Portugal head on to Angola and Mozambique, where forced labor lasted deep into the 20th century. Italy got Libya, Eritrea and Somalia, with faced strong resistance, especially in Ethiopia. This was not development, it was extraction. What Europe gained, Africa lost. Let's not sugarcoat it. Africa lost lands, freedom, culture and lives. Every kingdom, every village, and every forest was claimed. Traditional rulers were replaced with colonial governors. Language is banned. religions attacked, ways of life destroyed. In Congo alone, millions died under Leopold Drogba regime. Resistance in places like Sudan, Zimbabwe and Algeria was met with gross slaughter. Colonial rulers forced people to pay taxes, work on plantations and fight in European wars. They used divide and rule tactics, splitting tribes and creating ethnic tensions that still cause conflicts till today. The borders drawn back then still exist today, as unnatural, illogical and dangerous as they are. The Scramble for Africa wasn't just a land grab. It was the start of over 70 years of colonial rule. Even after independence in the 1950s and the 1970s, the damage remained. Broken economies, divided nations, stolen wealth, lost generations. Yet Africa endures. Its people, its cultures, its voices, they've survived the scramble, the chains, the guns and the lies. Today, Africa is still rising, but history doesn't disappear. The past still whispers, and we must remember it clearly, truthfully and loudly. The past was drawn in ink and blood. The future, thus Africa's to write.